Awesome. Hello, Proviso. Welcome to our all-school assembly. My name is Nicole Wilson. I am the Executive Director of Communications and Community Engagement here for the district, and we are so excited to have this all-school assembly. I know it's been a rough year with COVID and everything going virtual, and you haven't had an opportunity to really engage and talk about some of the things that are impacting us as a district, as a community, and as a nation. And so Superintendent Henderson really wanted to take this opportunity to give us an opportunity to talk about what we're seeing in our nation and talk about some of the triggers that it brings emotionally and how we move on and heal as a nation. So right now, I want to introduce Dr. Nicole Williams. She is our Deputy Superintendent for Transformation, and she'll talk a little bit and then we'll get right into the assembly.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson. Good morning. Well, no, it's afternoon. Good afternoon, Proviso. And thank you so much for being here, each and every one of our team members. Thank you to our principals. Thank you to our staff. Thank you to every single teacher in our district, every member of the community. Thank you for the hard work that you do each and every day to support our young people, our scholars, our students, to ensure that they achieve excellence. You are doing excellent work in the face of tremendous adversity. And so we commend you. We commend every staff member in our district for the work that you're doing. We thank you. We give you just such accolades for the work every day, the intentionality, the excellence. We know that it's tremendously difficult, but you are connecting with your students, you're going above and beyond. And so I do want to take a moment to say thank you on behalf of our superintendent, Dr. Henderson, and our board. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to each and every team member. And I'm going to ask you if you would take a moment just to look at a person. I know we're not sitting next to each other, but to just think about the people that we work with every day, the people that we serve, the young people that we serve, and just take a moment and just give a high five, a sort of a signal just to let us know that you agree with the fact that each and every day you go above and beyond in your classrooms, in our virtual classrooms, in our school communities. I want to thank our principals, Principal Bryce, Dr. Hardy, Dr. Carvelis. Thank you to all of our school leadership teams. Thank you to every member of this community. Thank you for the work that you do. I just want to take a moment and just kind of frame the conversation this afternoon, the conversation from the Let's Talk initiative. Dr. Henderson, our superintendent's initiative, focused on how do we create and encourage thoughtful dialogue about controversial issues in our nation, in our world. How do we ensure that there are intellectually safe, challenging spaces to do this work with efficacy and fidelity? And so I do want to thank our scholars, our student panel, this group of young people. They work with Dr. Henderson on a regular basis. They are the voices. They are the voices who are bringing clarity to conversations around our district, specific to how do we ensure that we have a district that thrives and that encourages voice and encourages responsible dialogue and encourages a community ethos, if you will, around any challenge that we experience, because united, we can stand. United, we can overcome any adversity. United, we can thoughtfully improve outcomes. We can thoughtfully improve our community. We can thoughtfully improve our world. I don't say this lightly. Dialogue creates community. Thank you for the opportunity today to bring dialogue to our community in a very thoughtful, intentional way across our district. Every member of our district is invited to this forum. And so we're really excited to launch Let's Talk. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our student voices. I'm going to ask them to take a moment to introduce themselves. We have Brandon Rogers, Ivriana Neal, let me make sure I pronounce her name correctly, Ivriana Neal, and Aaron Castro. And they're going to talk a little bit about this idea of student voice, some of the challenges that we experience, most recently in recent events across our nation, and add their voice to the conversation about how this personally impacts me and what I can do as a student, I can do as a member of this community, and as a member of this society to really think critically, to open dialogue, and to share. our innermost thoughts. So thank you so much again for creating this safe space, this intellectually safe space to engage. I'm going to ask our first student to take over. Brandon Rogers, please.
So, this is all I have to say, and I thank that you guys have given me this space to vent my own feelings and thoughts on what has happened in the past couple of weeks. So, without further ado, federal law defines sedition as a crime committed by two or more people under the jurisdiction of the United States, who conspire to overthrow or destroy by the force the government of the United States, or to level war against them, to oppose by force the authority of the United States government, to prevent, hinder, or delay by force the execution of any law of the United States, and to seize, take, or possess by force any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof. So when I use the word sedition, no, it is not from a desire to trigger those listening and watching, but from an honest, factual, and deep understanding of the definition and gravity of such a word. With that, on January 6, 2021, at around 2 p.m., a mob of people, possibly in their thousands, breached the east and west gates of the Capitol. This seditious throng had marched down Pennsylvania Avenue after attending a rally just shy of the White House, pushing and sadly eventually overtaking Capitol Police on the steps of the Capitol building and flooding into the People's House, all of which was broadcasted worldwide for all to behold. Sitting in my own home, I could only watch the scene unfold, filled with a painful irony at what I saw, as rioters, some clad in full military getup, assaulted the steps of the Capitol building. The irony had set in around the country as some fully clad in military getup assaulted the steps of the Capitol building. The irony had set in as around the country we watched them use U.S. flags as clubs and lances, weapons levied against the very seat of governance on which that flag represents. I could put in no simple terms the hurt I felt as I watched that. At the same time, I could only shake the feeling of quiet acceptance of the irony, of the quiet acceptance of inevitability. For almost 3 months, I had watched as fallacy after fallacy had been fed, and what happened on January 6th is but a lesson in where such rhetoric, I believe, can lead you, where faith in an individual or party can place you in the grand scheme of history. Rhetoric, in its simplest terms, is an impetus for action, both constructive and destructive. John F. Kennedy, concerned with the dangers of false rhetoric once uttered, no matter how big the lie, repeat it often enough, and people will regard it as truth. And truth, whether factual or not, can move mountains and part seas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brandon. I'm just going to ask us as a community to take a moment just to think about Brandon's words, internalize those words that he's spoken. Before we move on to our next speaker, if you have a piece of paper next to you, take a moment and jot down your thoughts, your reactions as we think about how do we condemn hatred and violence as a community and ensuring that all voices are heard on all sides of discussion. Thank you so much, Brandon. We applaud you for your courage. I'm going to ask our next speaker, Ms. Ivriana Neal, to please take the virtual floor. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ivriana Neal. I'm a senior at PMSA, and I'm here to talk about what happened at the Capitol building on January 6, 2021. Just in case you are not familiar, the Capitol building was stormed by a mob of Trump supporters and white supremacists. This was not a peaceful protest, as the media is portraying it to be. This was a riot and was a disturbance to the democracy that is supposed to protect our civil rights. These were a group of white supremacists who followed the order of Trump and began to act deranged in the upcoming days of the new election. They killed people, hurt people, and thought their actions were justified. But in reality, it goes to show that white privilege is real. Let's be honest. If these were Black Lives Matter supporters, the Capitol would have been a bloodbath of innocent protesters only trying to make change within a justice system that continues to fail minorities every single day. We see it in our schools, our community, our judicial system, and now we are seeing it firsthand through our federal government. These rioters held their Confederate flags high and their guns even higher. They were prepared for a war, but when Black Lives Matter walk around with the saying, I can't breathe, we still end up dead. This is proof that the Constitution does not apply to us and may never will. As a young Black female, I feel that no matter how much the world becomes aware of systemic racism and the inequality minorities have to face, nothing will change unless we all come together. We will always be seen as a threat when in reality, we are the only ones fighting for change. How can a wall get justice before an unarmed Black woman? How can Skittles and tea be mistaken for a gun? I always say the way to fight back these issues are to become educated, because that's one thing that cannot be taken away, a strong mind. I just think it's time to stand up and no longer ignore these ongoing issues of systemic racism. We must make our voices heard and never stop until they are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivriana, for such a powerful way to express yourself. Thank you to our teachers, to the teachers of the young scholars who are speaking today. You have really instilled the importance of agency and the importance of understanding and to convey your thoughts with clarity. So thank you to our teachers. Thank you for the work that you do each and every day in our classrooms to ensure that our young people have the agency to speak, the agency to advocate, and the agency to share with clarity and dignity. Thank you so much for the work that you do. I'd like you to take a moment, all of our listeners, to participate in the way that would be appropriate in this virtual forum. Just take a moment and jot down your reactions to what you heard from Ms. Neal. She provided a powerful testimony from her voice and from her experience. Let's take a moment and jot down our reactions. Again, elevating and privileging student voice is such an important part of the work that we do as educators. Thank you again for the participation in this forum today. Our last speaker, but certainly a powerful, powerful voice in the work, is Aaron Castro, and I'm going to ask Aaron to share his thinking and his reflections. Aaron, the virtual floor is yours.
Like Miss Williams said, I'm Aaron Castro. I am a junior at Proviso Science Academy, and I'm disgusted about the events that occurred at the beginning of the month. The situation at the Capitol reminds me of all the times the people attacked the Black Lives Matter protests for being too violent and too politicized. And then those same people proceeded to riot at the Capitol and attack the democratic ideals which the nation was founded on. They tried attacking the institution of voting for our president. They tried attacking everything that we've tried fighting for. Like, this event makes me wonder of what would happen at the Capitol if instead of it was a riot that had occurred, it was a peaceful protest for Black Lives Matter or some more other major event. In my eyes, in that instance, there would have been a larger police presence. The theoretical protest wouldn't have even made it near the Capitol buildings, and the National Guard wouldn't be held back. It's just disgusting, though. Even in the aftermath, these people which we've elected have actively called for support of these riots, and these people have let their ideologies take control instead of doing their job as protecting the rights of all individuals. The right for people to sleep in their bed, the right for people to walk down the street and not be discriminated against. Like, the only way I'm even close to coping is by having some hope. Even during these obviously horrific times, I still hope that we as a society can tackle these major issues that led to the riots. Major issues like misinformation, political extremism, and institutionalized discrimination all were major factors that led to the riots and led to all this bloodshed and horrible, horrible events. I feel like to change these systems, we have to, as not only a community, but as a nation, have to be more informed, have to support others when they're being put down. We need to fight even harder for these ideals which we hold dear. The ideals of equality, freedom, and the right to not be discriminated against, no matter what you are. And that's it, really.
Thank you, Aaron. Powerful words, very, very powerful words from young minds that are being shaped by the leaders and the teachers and every staff member in Proviso. We thank you for your dedication, commitment, and service. We thank you for your work. This is the fruit of the labor that you engage in each and every day to do this very thoughtful work. And so I just want to say thank you on behalf of our superintendent and our board. Please take a moment and jot down your reactions to Aaron's discourse. Very important that you react in ways that help you process the conversations this afternoon. As we pivot to thinking about this work from a holistic perspective, we have a voice that will join us. I know many of you actually saw him a moment ago on the screen, Pastor Matthews. I'm going to turn it back over to Nicole Wilson, who will take us through, once again, just the framing of this work today is an outlet for civil discourse, a message, a unifying message of hope and healing, not only for our nation and our world, but for our community. Hablamos sobre construir puentes de unidad. It's so important that we construct bridges of unity and respect and a thoughtful way to engage each and every member of our community. Thank you for the opportunity today to share with you, and thank you for the opportunity today to just be a part of a community where we can respect thoughtful discourse and creating that safe space to do so. Thank you to every student, to every scholar that's listening, and every scholar who had the courage this afternoon to participate in this forum in the ways that they did. So please give a virtual sort of applause, un aplauso, if you will, to our 3 scholars representing the voices of Proviso here today. Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. I want to take some time to acknowledge the comments that each student noted. So it sounds to me, if I heard each of them correctly, that every one of them felt the pain of seeing one group of people being treated differently maybe than another. And also all are hoping, if I can use Aaron's words, hoping that there is a path toward healing, that a path toward unity, and a path where everyone can walk equally in the freedoms that the Constitution guarantees them. And so I know that we've asked Pastor Teddy Matthews to join us and talk about some of those things, talk about the triggers that each one of the students have noted, talked about that they've felt over the past couple of weeks, and then also talk about some of the tools that we can use to move forward together as a community, and how do we build those bridges that allow us to be unified as a school, as a district, and as a community. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Teddy Matthews, who is right here in our own community, who is a voice to people young and old, and who has certainly been helpful. And I've been with the district for just a few months, and I can tell that he has a passion for the youth and a passion to make sure this community thrives. And so I want to make sure that he has an opportunity to address you and give you those tools that help us all build together. So without further ado, Pastor Matthews, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for that introduction. Thank you, Dr. Williams, as well, for you moderating this and you guiding us through this discussion. And to Dr. Henderson, I see your name, and even if you're not able to be present visibly at the moment, I do want to say thank you for this opportunity. To all of you all, I spoke to all the principals earlier and addressed you all individually, but I count it a privilege. But I do want to do this and ask that all of you all would acknowledge again the student panel who represents the voice and the pulse in many ways of the district, of what our next generation, and I really, when I was youth pastor and referred to them as the next generation, I'm convinced they are the now generation. I was convinced of it then, I'm convinced of it now, that this is the generation. Barack Obama said it best, president, years ago, early in his career, said that we are the people we've been waiting for. And I believe that the voice you all have as students is key and critical in terms of where we will go as a nation, where we will go as a people, where we will go as a community. And what you have said so far is incredibly inspiring, and I think hopefully enlightening for those who may not necessarily understand some of the realities of what we're facing today. Here, I'm going to be honest, I was left with the charge of speaking to you all on a very, very weighty subject. So one, I don't take this lightly. Two, I almost feel like I was set up. But here it is. Here it is. I think that there is a truth we must all understand. And all three of our student panelists spoke to it about, one, the dangers of divisive language and rhetoric. Sometimes we discount the realities of how much impact our language has and our words have. And words absolutely have power. And we've seen that demonstrated all throughout human history. But if we're going to talk specifically about what we've seen over the last 10 or so days, we've seen words create worlds. We've seen people use language and rhetoric and communication to create narratives and to paint pictures. And regardless of what side of the fence per se you may sit on, I think we all can agree that there are some things that have transpired that we must discuss, we must expose, we can no longer sanitize, and the students are speaking. And it is our responsibility to make sure we're creating a safe space for them to discuss, for us to learn, for us to listen, and for all of us to remember and or be informed that all of us have a responsibility. Student, teacher, staff, faculty, we all have a responsibility to lead us forward toward, as Aaron said, this pathway to hope. One writer says it this way and says that we all are leaders in one way, shape, or form because we all have influence. So regardless of whether we view ourselves as a leader, we hold a title, we sit on a student panel, we serve in a different area of authority, we all have influence. And what I believe we've seen in our country is the discount of the influence, or the abuse of the influence, should I say, of certain individuals over the course of time. And what we heard from the student panel today was an honest assessment of what I'm calling the communal impact of injustice. It's not just one person. It's not just a color that feels it. It's a communal impact that injustice causes for all of us emotionally, psychologically. It affects us physiologically. It has real implications. So I love how Dr. Williams took the time after each one spoke to ask and say, how did this make you feel? Because what we have seen in mass proportions between 2020 beginning and now we are 15 days into 2021, is we have seen trauma and we have seen encounter and we have seen event and we have seen this, and you go again about 10 days now backwards in our country, and we saw what many people would think never ever could happen. A uprising at our nation's capital. Undeniable truths, undeniable facts took place that day. There's unfortunately some conversations that happen sometimes, and we pretend to paint narratives, or we share parts of the story that we want to share, but there are some undeniable facts. There are actual ramifications and repercussions that should be had for the actions that were displayed. And we heard from some of the students the reality and their narrative and their belief and their convictions around what would have happened, undoubtedly could have happened. And because I could just, you can see me. So if you see my face, you know, I've been Black my whole life. I understand the truth of what it means to be a young Black man living in society. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody feels the way about us, but it does mean that there are realities for minorities living in America. It's why we refer to them as minorities. There is a separate group. We cannot pretend as if Dr. King's dream has came into fulfillment yet. It has not. We cannot pretend as if certain realities do not exist in our country. They do. Now, that doesn't mean that because we talk about it, it means we should accept them. It does mean if we don't talk about it, if we don't expose it, we can never adequately address them. So today, during our time, so far, we've asked you to feel, we've asked you to jot down how you feel about many of these things. We've asked you to jot down your emotional responses. Many of us haven't had a safe space to just process. I told the people I lead through the organization I lead just recently, I've been silent on some of these matters, not because I don't have something to say, but because if we're going to be honest, what we have seen on display, what we have seen exposed, not just in the last 10 days, honestly, what we've seen on a major scale in the last year alone is a lot to process. But I love how Aaron left us and led us toward this place as Brandon started us off talking about the realities of what we see. And Ivriana came back and she explained from her perspective, but then Aaron used this key word of hope. And I wrote down a quote when I was preparing for this that I want to share with you. It's from Augustine of Hippo. It says this, that hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are anger and courage. Anger at the way we see things, and courage to see that they do not remain as they are. I'm going to say it again. Hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are anger and courage. Anger at the way things are. It means we have to be honest that some stuff stinks. We have to call out what is not working, what is broken, what has happened, what makes me feel a kind of way. So there is a such thing as righteous indignation. For us to be frustrated with broken systems and systemic racism as it exists, we can pretend as if it doesn't exist, but we'll never change it, we'll never fix it, and we'll never get through it. We need anger in some regards. We need to be angry that this still happens in 2021. Monday, we celebrate Dr. King Day. Today being Dr. King's birthday, years after he's marched, years after all these things have transpired in our country. And yet and still, we are still suffering from some of the similar implications of what happened. And no, it's not as bad, but it sure isn't where it could be. And the longer we pretend as if that's not the truth, the longer we don't have safe spaces to provide forums for students and for people to share their honest truth, whether we agree with it all or not, the longer we will remain here. So Augustine said, anger must exist, angry about how it is, but the courage to see that they do not remain as they are. That hope is a pathway forward, that while our world has been turned upside down and our sense of normal has been shattered, and there is a very clear divide in our country that has been exposed. I don't know if it was recently created. I don't believe that. I do believe it has been exposed in mass proportions, but the question is, what do we do? The students have spoken, and there's no need for me to continue to explain the sentiment. They shared it so eloquently. The question that remains and the question that sits now is, where do we go from here? I'm reminded of the speeches and the things that have gone on before us from great orators who raised these questions for generations. But the question is today, what will we do? How will we make a decision that we can change the world by at least attempting to change our world? Understanding that we truly are the people we have been waiting for. Understanding that it has to be safe spaces created in classrooms and in school environments and in educational environments. Why? Because this is where we spend the most of our day. There's some people who don't have the opportunity to have these kind of conversations at home. So I commend the district for taking a time to have a forum like this to adequately at least say, listen, there's something wrong. But the question is, what does it look like to take the tools and to raise the courage to make a decision to say, we're going to have courageous and caring conversations that build bridges to bring us closer together and no longer have this conflicting and chaotic rhetoric that keeps us apart. Regardless of where we sit and regardless of some of the things that are stated globally and some of the things that we've even seen Twitter had to step up and say can no longer take place, we've got to be honest and say that there's something wrong. But the question is, where do we go from here? I want to take you back to where I started, and that's that words have power. So I'm going to ask you to consider what it means for you to become a person of hope, because hope starts with belief, but hope is expressed through our words. What are we saying? Are we believing that this is where we have to always be as a country? Or are we saying that this is unacceptable, that what we saw last week and what we've seen in division this week and what we've seen exacerbated on social media and what we've seen in gross injustice day after day after day, this pandemic made us all have to sit down and look at the TV and see stuff that most of us have been seeing in our backyard forever, but we can no longer pretend like it's not happening. But students, I need you to hear me. Your voice matters. Your voice matters. You are needed. You are key. You are critical. You can do far more than you think if you learn to use your voice, to speak up when something is wrong, to find language to articulate how you feel. And it is on us as adults and on teachers and facilitators and those who work with you all to make sure the space is safe to do it, because here it is. We have to know that the reality of it is these conversations are hard, but they're even harder if I feel like I'm going to be judged for sharing it. These conversations are incredibly challenging. But there's this thing called social trust, which is the confidence that most people will do what they're supposed to do most of the time. But if I don't have social trust, that if I tell you how I'm feeling, you're going to take how I'm feeling and you're not going to tell me how I feel is wrong. You're not going to tell me I shouldn't express what I'm feeling in my heart. You're not going to argue and articulate from your particular perspective and vantage point. That may be your truth, but there is, again, I'm going to say it because I believe we need to say it now more than ever. There are communal emotions that we are experiencing, and we are seeing people tell people how to feel. You shouldn't be angry. You shouldn't feel this way. That's not this, and this isn't that. And what we've seen in the last 10 days in a conversation and in dialogue is wrong. So what do? We need to make a decision. I shared this with a program a week ago, but I feel like these 4 things are key and critical for you all today as well. Number 1, we have to learn to listen. We have to learn to listen to each other. We have to make a decision to create environments that are safe spaces for everyone to have a voice and let their voice be affirmed. Let's talk about whether you're right or wrong after we at least let you get it out. Because sometimes we're so quick to say you're wrong before I even get to express adequately how I feel. And sometimes talking about these things takes time. We have to be willing to listen. I shared this one. We have to be willing to learn. We have to be willing to learn from one another. Sometimes we listen for listening purposes, but are you willing to learn? Are you willing to figure out what it means through to see life through someone else's eyes? To ask the question of people who may not look like us and do not come from where we come from and may not live where we live, to ask the question, is it possible that what they're saying is true? And while it may not be my reality all the time, is it possible that what they're saying is their reality? Are we willing to learn? We have to be willing to love. Doesn't mean I have to always agree. But love is a foundational principle. I don't care what your faith belief is. Love is love. You may not believe what I believe. You may not serve who I serve, but love is love. It's a universal principle. We should treat other people how we want to be treated. That's a universal principle. We should live and express with kindness and compassion. That's a universal principle. We should listen, we should learn, we should love, but then we have to lead. How is it that we take something like this, a forum like this, and say, we're going to take the chaos and the contention and we're going to take it and we're going to say that at least in our world, if we cannot change the global world, at least in our world, at least throughout the virtual hallways, since we're not the virtual hallways of Proviso East, the virtual hallways of Proviso West, the virtual hallways of Proviso Math and Science Academy, to take all of what's happening and make a decision. While we may not have the same kind of impact on the global world, at least we'll start with our local world. By having safe spaces, by providing forums, and by asking questions. Not always approaching stuff with answers. The answers to some of it are simple, it's just hard to do. Yeah, the problem is we don't need more answers. The problem is we need more listening and learning and loving. Yeah, we know, some of us know what is right, we just don't do what is right. But I'm arguing is because we're not always willing to listen. We're not always willing to learn. We're not always willing to love. Here's what I'll leave you all with. It's a charge, it's a challenge, it's a poem, it's something that has spoke words to me. It is something that has reminded me of why I should continue to keep going during times in which I wondered if it was worth it. It's a poem by Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, and it speaks to the nature of our decision to live life with intentionality. To not waste our words, to not miss our moments, to not waste our day. It says this: I only have 1 minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, didn't choose it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up for me to use it. I will suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. In 1 minute, we have watched a nation flip upside down from tweets. In 1 minute, we have watched things turn from bad to worse. In 1 minute, we have watched divisive rhetoric run our country rampant. With 1 minute, we have watched what one man can do with one opportunity, and we've watched it send ripple effects. But what could happen if you took your minute? What could happen if you made a decision to change your world, to say, listen, I may not be able to go out and impact everybody here, but I will no longer tolerate injustice in my world. I will not sit on the sideline and pretend as if I don't have a voice, as if my voice doesn't matter. I will no longer continue to let the people around me feel like their voices don't matter. What if I took my minute, my moment? And so I didn't pick it, I didn't choose it, I didn't ask for the country to be this way, but I will not. I will not settle for this being the norm. I will not accept that life has to be this way, but I'm going to build bridges. Bridges to unity, bridges to strengthen, bridges to diversity, that I'm going to live out learning, living, learning, listening, loving, and leading. The decision is yours. But it's up to you to make a decision. How will you use your minute?
Awesome, awesome message. Thank you so much, Pastor Matthews. If we can just take a moment and give Pastor Matthews a hand clap for that amazing message of hope, amazing message that unifies our community. We want to make sure that, everybody, as Pastor Matthews said, has a voice, regardless of which side of this issue you stand on, that we can find our way back to the middle and find a way forward and build bridges that unify us and help this whole community thrive. I do want to take a minute. I know that our time is running short, and so I wanted to give the students an opportunity just to ask a quick question of Dr. Matthews. If you have one, the students on the panel, if you have a question, please let me know, and I will make sure you have an opportunity to ask your question. And really quickly, before we turn it over to the principals and then get us back to our classrooms, Mr. Castro, do you have a question?
Yeah, I sort of do. There are a lot of people out there. Just a preface, sorry. My connection's not that great, so some parts you did cut out. So if I missed something, I'm sorry with the question. But there are many people who believe that we as a nation are too far gone to fix ourselves, and they go and just don't care about the issues because they feel like there's nothing we can really do anymore about it. What would you say to those people about that?
That's an excellent question, Aaron. Here's part of my response. I would say to those. Well, first of all, I would say something to both people, because there are people who are needed, who are responsible for leading with hope, for being light, for carrying out the responsibility, even when others don't agree, even when others don't feel like it's possible. I feel like those people need to be encouraged and to know that in order to create something of significance, in order to ever create any type of change, you have to make a decision to start. And making a decision to start is a decision to start now, starting where you are with what you have and going forward. So I would say that to that group. To the group who believes that it is far too gone, we are far too in a hole and all those kind of things, I would do my best to agree that we are pretty far. We are in a dire place in some regards. However, I will go back to the quote I started with, that hope has two daughters. Be angry about where we are. We can choose to settle for where we are, or we can have the courage to at least try to make the world a better place. That is up to us. We have a choice. We can either choose to accept where things are, or we can at least try. And I think sometimes, Aaron, it feels harder to try to address things specifically like this because we want to tackle the big problem instead of saying, what is it again I can at least do where I am to change my world, to alter things in my sphere of influence, to alter things in my school, to start where I am with what I have and just make a decision for me to at least start small and just figure out how it is I can lead forward. I hope that answered your question.
Awesome, thank you. Brandon, do you have any questions for Pastor Matthews?
Yeah, that was awesome. It was very moving. I'm going to take those lessons to heart, especially that foundation on which the power of our voices rest. And that's kind of where my question comes from. What do you think that foundation of love, listening, learnership, and leadership, what do you think the biggest threat to that is, like, going forward?
That's another excellent question. I think that the biggest threat per se to that, or challenge that exists with that, is everyone communicates but few connect. I think that there has to be a willingness to listen, which sometimes it's slower. So I think it's making a decision that I'm going to speak regardless of whether or not you want to hear what I have to say, especially when it's conversations like this. It's making a decision to say my voice matters. And I won't let you silence me from thinking my voice matters. I think the second part of that is a decision to learn. I think what we have seen, I think what the pandemic exposed, if we just not even talk about like the social injustices, if we talk about what the pandemic exposed, it exposed our nature as humans to resist change. People didn't want to hop on Zoom. People didn't want to hop on Meets. People didn't want to go to e-learning. And I'm not saying any of it is easy, but it exposed our resistance to change. And so one writer says, Brandon, that the illiterate of the 21st century are those who are unwilling to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So I think the biggest resistance or hindrances potentially to that are those who don't want to try. Like, learning is trying. Will you at least commit to trying? Trying to understand, trying to listen, taking a moment when it gets too hot and heated and coming back to it. But I think it's trying.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for that answer. And then Ivriana will give you an opportunity to ask a question if you have a question for Pastor Matthews.
Okay, my question is, how will we overcome this stereotype of not being able to succeed, because of where we come from or how we look, though, we try our best in school and to make something of ourselves, but in reality, we're always seen as, the mad Black woman or the ghetto Black man, or because he's sagging his pants, he's a thug, or because he has tattoos, he can't be a lawyer. And I was just wondering, like, how are we to overcome those things? Because though we're to change now with Black senators and Black first vice presidents and things like that, what more else can we do to prove our point that we are not what society views us as? Like, we're way more than that.
So that's an incredible question. I think, Ivriana, for one, I think your question just brought me back to speak to you all again later, because there's no way that I can adequately address that in 30 seconds or more or less. So I think you just brought me back again, hands down, to really answer it adequately. But and at least the shortest order of it is, I say one piece. Again, I can speak from the aspect of me. I've been a Black man my whole life. I anticipate dying a Black man. And so as a result of that, I've had to accept some realities of our current culture and climate. But I had to make a decision personally that I would be a barrier breaker. So I had to make a decision personally that regardless of how others may see me, I was going to become certain things. I was going to do certain things. I was going to walk my unique way. I was going to step into the fullness of my potential, regardless of who said I couldn't. And I see my main man is rocking with me, D3 over there, because he's somebody who is living it out. So I think part of it is making a decision for intentional living. It's making a decision regardless of what you say I cannot do, regardless of what you think about how this may be. I'm going to rise educationally. I'm going to perform professionally. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do this. It's making a decision. And it sounds oversimplified. It's simple. It's just not easy. Like, it is simple. It's just not easy to make a decision to rise above the rhetoric, to make a decision at times to be the only person who may look a certain way in a certain room. It's tough, but make a decision to be a barrier breaker. It's refusing to settle. If I could give any message to the students who can hear me, it's refuse to settle. Be a barrier breaker. I can say that because I was born in Maywood, Illinois, just like some of the people who are now rising to power, and we're watching State Representative Chris Welch now become the first African-American Speaker of the House, another part. As we're watching this, but they took decisions. So typically people like this don't come from don't come from areas like this. People like this don't graduate from schools like this. It's making a decision to be a barrier breaker. Intentional living. I'm not what they say. I am what I can be. And I could go on there. So I'll turn it back over. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much, Pastor
Yes, it
Matthews.
does. Thank you.
We absolutely appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and we absolutely will consider having you back to address some of the other needs. Right now, I do want to give our principals, we have all three of our principals on the line, just a minute or two, just to kind of wrap up and speak directly to the students who attend their schools and talk about how we move together forward in each of our school communities and as a district as a whole. We'll start with you, Mr. Bryce.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Wilson. I really appreciate that. Hey students, good afternoon. As you heard, I'm Mr. Bryce. I'm the principal of PMSA, but I've also worked in all three schools in our district. So I'm definitely proud to say that I'm truly a pirate, panther, and python at heart. Thank you so much, Brandon, Ivriana, Aaron, for your thoughtful and honest dialogue. One that's shared by so many of our students and others throughout our nation. You know, of course, I'm always inspired by you, Pastor Matthews. I'm so thankful for this opportunity to speak with you and really for just the platform here that we all have an opportunity to come together. And hopefully I'll add or at least reinforce what has already been said. It truly is a privilege. We know that the traumatic events of January 6th and its aftermath have added stress, anger, and heartache for so many in an already difficult time. Because what took place is simply not okay. As Dr. Williams said, We must condemn hatred and violence. You, as students, as budding adults, are shouldering different levels of awareness, fear, anxiety on what occurred. Please know that you're not alone and that we're here for each and every one of you. If you haven't already, create a network of people around you that you can trust, that you can lean on. And then when you can, be that person for others. We're certainly committed as a school to be here, a school and a district, to be here for you in any way that you might need us. And of course, provide that safe place that we were talking about. Please remain focused on what you believe is right and allow your moral compass, what you truly believe in your heart to be right and good, to guide you during this troubled time and every moment forward after that. As humans, we must care for ourselves and those around us. We're stronger and healthier when we build bridges, when we come together through equity and understanding. As Ivriana said, nothing will change until we all come together. Our words and our actions matter, even when others do wrong. Your voice matters, and you can make a difference. You can make a difference, no matter where you come from, no matter what your story is, no matter what you've done before. It's about what you do from this point moving forward. I've watched firsthand the students of this district at all three schools, do profound things to support what they believe in and use their hearts and their minds to make a difference. That difference has come in so many forms, with actions as simple as listening to one another when others wouldn't. I'm continually impressed by you. As Pastor Matthew said, you are the face and the voice of our future. Through this historically difficult time, you've done an amazing job to persevere with tremendous resolve. Continue with that grit, drive, and determination. Continue. You'll come out of these difficult times stronger and more ready than ever to make your mark on the world. Like Aaron said, hope gives us strength. Hope gives us strength. Use that strength. Take one day at a time to focus on what matters. And I'll say that again. Take one day at a time. Care for yourselves and your loved ones. We hear you, we see you, and we're thinking about you every single day. That's what we're here for. That's why we do this job, and that's why we need to come together as a community. Thank you for listening. I'm truly honored and humbled to have the opportunity to speak with all of you. I hope this sets the tone for a great weekend to come, especially one that honors a great leader, Dr. Martin Luther King, whose actions and teaching continue to guide us with hope that his vision comes a reality. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm honored. Thank you.
Dr. Carvelis? You're muted.
Okay. You could hear me now? Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the students for their wonderful, wonderful presentation. And Reverend Matthews, you have given Proviso so much of yourself. And truly, we appreciate it. And I want you to know that we look up to you and we think of you all the time. And today I have to say that this assembly is a form of catharsis. And that is one of the rhetorics that Aristotle used, who is a famous Greek philosopher. He made many contributions to our world in logic, criticism, rhetoric, physics, biology, math, and of course, ethics and politics. And the reason I bring him up is because Dr. Williams reminded me of Aristotle when she talked about ethos, when she started our assembly. And he, in his rhetoric, defined three words: ethos, which is the right to speak, as Dr. Williams said; logos, which is a logic argument, to be able to develop a logic argument; and pathos, an attempt to sway your audience's emotions. And I have to tell you that what happened at the Capitol just created hurt and divisiveness. That is not the way you persuade your audience. That is not what we're about. And that is what we have to keep in mind. We're above and beyond that. We need to stand united. We cannot ignore the events that occurred. None of us are going to, because it happened. But we need to talk about it. Some of us need to talk about it more than others. We are here to listen to you, to respect everyone's opinions and everyone's beliefs. We are here to show compassion and understanding to all our students, regardless of who you are, where you come from, what your beliefs are. We are here to listen. And students, we are not going to ignore anyone's opinions, feelings, or emotions. If you want to be heard, your teachers, they're here to listen to you as we are. We allow all perspectives to be heard, as long as those perspectives are presented in a respectful way. We are going to listen and support. Teaching and learning continues, whether we're inside the schoolhouse doors or outside of the schoolhouse doors. Let's make a teachable moment for all of us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Dr. Hardy, if you'll unmute and give some final thoughts.
Two natures beat within my breast. One is foul, the other is blessed. One I love, one I hate, but the one I feed will dominate. The nation just told you how badly it needs you. The question is, which you will it get? Will it get the one that you know you should never feed? Or will it get the one that's blessed? And so when you see a nation divided, my question to you is, which part of you will you feed? When you see a nation and our leaders, our politicians and others preaching anger and hatred and foulness, which part of you will you feed? When you hear words that incite and words that hurt and words that discourage, which part of you will you feed? Will you speak a word that brings healing? Will you speak a word that brings unity? Will you speak and advocate for equality and not divisiveness? The nation just showed you how badly it needs you. But which you will it get? But you don't have to wait for the nation, because you can do some things right now to make yourself ready. So pirates, panthers, pythons, when integrated math, physics, biology, chemistry, history get a little difficult, which you are you gonna feed? Are you gonna feed the quitter? Are you gonna feed the dedicated one? When remote learning has gotten on your last nerve, which you will you feed? Can you get up one more morning? Can you log in one more time? Because your minute is coming and you better be ready to take it. When you face whatever adversity you may be facing, someone in the home is sick, I'm sick, I don't feel like it, just lost that job, we really needed it. Which one of you will you feed? Two natures beat within my breast. One is foul, the other is blessed. One I love, one I hate, but the one I feed will dominate. I encourage you, no matter what school you go to, no matter what community you live in, feed the you that the nation needs, because it needs you right now. No matter what school you go to, no matter what mascot you carry, I encourage you, feed the you that you want to be, because we just showed you as a nation how badly we need you. We love you all. I love you, Pirates, and I hope to see you soon. God bless.
Thank you so much to all of our principals for weighing in and letting our students know that we are here for you. We aren't going anywhere. If you have questions, if you have concerns, if you need to talk, every one of us, we are all here for you to make sure you can get the answers and the support that you need. I'm going to turn it over one last time for Dr. Williams to give us a final closeout, 60 seconds or less, so you can get back to the final minutes of your classroom. I know we went beyond the time that we were anticipating, but we didn't want it. We wanted to take our time. We didn't want to cut it off. It was really good. So Dr. Williams, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much once again, everyone, with this incredibly inspiring dialogue today. To frame the question, to answer the question, can schools, can districts encourage thoughtful dialogue about controversial issues in a caring and intellectually challenging and safe space? The answer is a resounding yes. We create that community here in Proviso. And I ask each and every one of you to give yourselves a rousing round of applause, give yourselves a hug, because we know that only through the unity, through the work that we do together, by working together in a thoughtful, intentional way, can we achieve excellence and greatness. I want to thank you, Pastor Matthews. This is my first opportunity hearing you. I'm very new to the community, but I just want to say thank you. You inspired me, you inspired us as a community to think deeply about this work and to continue to forge ahead in the face of incredible adversity. I'm going to just share your words again. Learn to listen to each other, being willing to learn, to see someone else's lived experience, the willingness to love and share that love as a foundational principle, and having the courage to lead and to lead with excellence. And every single member of our community, our teachers, our staff, our faculty, every member of our community, our scholars, our students, you are leaders. You are leaders, and we value you. We value your voice. Once again, I just want to take a moment and thank our student panel. Please, I am going to call them by name. Once again, I'm going to say Mr. Rogers, Miss Neal, Mr. Castro. You are dynamite. You are awesome. You brought voice to an issue, to a controversy that we as adults needed to hear. This student panel today was rich and thoughtful and engaging. And I just want to say the efficacy around this work is just powerful. Again, on behalf of our superintendent, who is a visionary leader, our board, who has a vision for excellence, every teacher in our community, every student in our community, every staff member, every parent, every member, I just want to say thank you. You created a rich and valuable learning experience for us as a thoughtful school district focused on excellence. Thank you to our principals, your voices matter. Thank you to our administrative team members, you're working nonstop. Our teachers are working nonstop. We applaud you. And the reality of this virtual platform, it is a reality. The glitches that take place, we are all struggling, but we're learning together. Never stop learning. We are a learning community. We are a learning organization. Thank you for bringing this rich and valuable learning experience today. Thank you to just the excellence that was displayed today. And I want to just say on behalf of our school district, on behalf of our entire school district, thank you. Thank you to each and every member of our community. We can't wait to see you in person. We value you, we respect you, we love you. We will lead and continue to lead with courage and with love. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, teachers. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for all you do. Once again, the voices of our young people today, that panel was so thoughtfully constructed because of the work that you do each and every day in your classrooms to ensure that our students are empowered, they have agency, they have the intellectual supports to be excellent. So thank you for all that you do, each and every member of our community. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Please have a wonderful weekend, and remember and honor, love, and respect one another. And as we celebrate a wonderful leader in our country, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., please take a moment and to remember that peace and love should guide all of our decisions. Thank you so much again. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.
Go to class, God dog it. Y'all better go to class. West, East, PMSA, y'all better go to class. I'll come find all y'all.
Pythons, Pirates,
Bye, everyone.
Panthers, let's go. Let's go. We